The bouquet arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, wrapped in soft ivory paper and tied with a navy blue satin ribbon. I froze the moment I saw my name handwritten on the delivery slip, Lena Whitmore. My heart raced in a way it hadn't in years. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of birthdays forgotten, anniversaries overlooked, holidays passed without a single card. And now, out of nowhere, a bouquet. My hands trembled as I lifted the flowers, inhaling a scent so gentle it made my chest tighten. White peonies, my favorite, though I had never once mentioned them to Colton. Just the sight of them cracked something open inside me. Maybe he finally remembered. Maybe he finally saw me. Maybe I hadn't been foolish to stay. I carried the bouquet into the kitchen, sunlight from the large San Francisco window spilling across the marble counters. For the first time in a long time, hope didn't feel like a stranger. I imagined Colton thinking of me, choosing these flowers, remembering the woman he once promised the world to. I should have left it at that moment, should have stayed suspended in that fragile illusion. But curiosity tugged at me when I noticed a small, cream-colored envelope tucked beneath the ribbon. My name wasn't on this one. I slid the card out. 4 words, black ink, beautiful handwriting. Arielle, I need you. The world around me stilled. The sunlight suddenly felt cold, the air too thin. My fingers stiffened, gripping the card so tightly it crumpled at the edges. The flowers slipped from my hand, scattering petals across the floor like the remains of something naive and already broken. I whispered the name again, as if saying it aloud would change its meaning. Arielle. Someone I had never met. Someone my husband clearly knew well enough to send flowers to, paid for with a credit card that carried my name. My knees weakened, and then my phone buzzed. A message from Colton. Don't touch anything that arrives today. The blood drained from my face. Something was very, very wrong. For the rest of the morning, I moved through the apartment like a ghost drifting through someone else's life. The shattered petals still lay scattered across the kitchen floor, but I didn't have the strength to sweep them up. It felt symbolic, like cleaning them would mean accepting that something inside my marriage had truly died. 10 years. 10 years beside Colton Reeves, a man who never forgot a business deal, never missed a networking dinner. I never failed to impress a boardroom, yet somehow forgot every moment that mattered to me. My birthdays always came with the same line. You know I'm not good at gifts. Our anniversaries passed with a distracted kiss on the forehead. Christmas? We're adults, Lena. We don't need all that. Sometimes I wondered if I'd made it too easy, if my quiet acceptance had given him permission to stop trying. But this morning, this cruel, humiliating morning, proved that Colton did know how to choose gifts. He just chose them for someone else. I walked into the living room and stood in front of the large window overlooking the fog settling over San Francisco. The city felt distant, indifferent to the ache inside my chest. My phone buzzed again, a calendar reminder from work. Today was the day the company would announce layoffs. I was already on the list of positions under review. Perfect timing, as if the universe had coordinated with my collapsing marriage. When the front door finally opened that evening, Colton stepped inside, wearing his usual polished confidence. Navy suit, Rolex glinting beneath the hallway light. He looked exactly like a man who had never missed a single luxury in his life. Hey, he said casually, loosening his tie. Rough day. What's for dinner? I stared at him, really stared, waiting for guilt to flicker across his face, for any sign that he knew what he'd done. But nothing. Not a twitch, not a shadow. He walked right past the fallen petals without noticing. Or maybe he noticed and simply didn't care. I swallowed hard. A delivery came for you. He froze for half a second. Just half. But it was enough. A subtle shift in his shoulders. A breath caught too quickly. And in that tiny moment, I realized something chilling. He already knew exactly which delivery I meant, and he was terrified I'd seen more than he intended. Colton didn't ask about the flowers. He didn't ask whether I had opened the envelope or seen the card. Instead, he walked straight to the kitchen cabinet, grabbed a bottle of sparkling water, and pretended everything was perfectly normal. That alone told me everything was not. I followed him slowly, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Colton," I said quietly, "someone sent flowers today?" He didn't turn around. "Yeah? Probably a mix-up. Delivery services screw things up all the time." He said it fast, too fast, like a man trying to outrun the truth. I stepped closer. "They weren't addressed to me." That made him pause. His hand tightened around the bottle cap, knuckles whitening. When he finally turned, his expression was calm, but the calm of someone controlling a fire behind their eyes. "Lena," he said with a sigh, "I'm really not in the mood for whatever you're implying." Implying? The word hit me like a shove. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the counter. A new text notification from the bank. My stomach dropped as I read it. "Your credit card, ending in 4271, was used for a $1,200 purchase in Beverly Hills. Reply yes to confirm." My card. A Beverly Hills transaction. The same day the flowers arrived, I felt cold all over. Colton's eyes flickered to the screen. "Oh, that? I, uh... I used your card because mine was flagged. Work stuff. You know how banks are?" I stared at him, my breath shallow. "What did you buy for $1,200? He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His face tightened in frustration. At me, not at the lie he'd just attempted. "I don't remember every purchase, Lena. Can we not do this tonight?" The avoidance, the defensiveness, the financial lie on top of the emotional one. The cracks in the facade widened. He tossed the bottle cap into the sink and walked away like the conversation bored him. "I have an early meeting. Good night." He disappeared down the hall, leaving me alone in the silence of our too expensive apartment, staring at a bank alert for a transaction I hadn't made, and a bouquet bought for a woman I didn't know. I sank onto the bar stool, shaking. For the first time in 10 years, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. Maybe I didn't actually know the man I married, and maybe he was hiding far more than another woman. Cliffhanger. That night, sleep refused to come. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the city outside our apartment windows. Colton's steady breathing beside me only made the ache sharper. How could he sleep so peacefully when my world felt like it was cracking open? Around 2 a.m., the mattress shifted. Colton slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to disturb me. But after a decade with him, I knew the sound of his footsteps, the subtle way he closed the door, the soft click of his phone waking up in his hand. I waited until he walked down the hallway before following. My heart hammered as I inched toward the crack of light spilling from his office. He never worked this late unless he was hiding something. I didn't have to wait long. His voice was low, urgent. "No, she didn't see anything. I handled it." A pause. "No, Arielle, relax. I told you. I'll fix this." Her name on the flowers, her name on his lips. A dizzy wave rushed through me, and I gripped the wall to steady myself. Colton continued, pacing the room. "I'll take care of the card issue. She won't trace it. Just stay calm. Trace it? My breath hitched. What exactly was he afraid I'd trace? At that moment, he turned toward the doorway. I pulled back just in time, heart slamming into my ribs. The office door closed, and his voice faded again. I hurried back to the bedroom, slipping beneath the covers, eyes wide in the dark. A minute later, he returned. The mattress dipped as he climbed in beside me. He exhaled, long and heavy, like someone who had put out a fire. I lay still, pretending to sleep, but my mind was racing. Why did he need to fix anything? Why was Arielle panicking? What exactly had he put under my name? The room felt colder, heavier. Colton reached over and brushed my arm lightly, as if nothing had happened. "Long day tomorrow," he muttered. "Get some rest." I stayed rigid, silent. In that moment, I knew something with absolute certainty. The flowers weren't the beginning of a betrayal. They were the beginning of the truth, and whatever Colton was hiding. I had only touched the surface. The next morning, I woke with a heaviness that made even breathing feel exhausting. Colton had already left, an early meeting, according to the note he scribbled on the counter. It was almost laughable how neatly he could pretend nothing was wrong. The man had a talent for disappearing right before anything real surfaced. I stood in the kitchen staring at the spot where the flowers had fallen yesterday. I had swept them up before Colton woke, telling myself it was to avoid another argument. But deep down, I think I didn't want him to see how much it hurt me. I had spent years protecting his comfort at the expense of my own. My phone buzzed with a new email from HR subject line. Restructuring updates. My stomach twisted as I opened it. Your position remains under review. Final decisions will be communicated within the next 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to sit with a failing marriage, a husband living a double life, and the possibility of losing the only financial stability I had. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment before my thoughts swallowed me whole. Driving through the morning fog toward the Marina District, I pulled into a quiet parking lot overlooking the bay. The water was calm, almost too calm compared to the storm inside me. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. The tears came slowly at first, then all at once. 10 years of silence, 10 years of minimization, 10 years of telling myself I was too sensitive, too demanding, too emotional. I had never asked for diamonds, not fancy trips, not extravagant romantic gestures. Just one moment, one sign, that I mattered. And when that moment finally came, it belonged to another woman. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail from an unknown number. The voice was soft, hesitant. Hi. I don't know if this is the right Lena Whitmore. I found something with your name on it. It's important. Please call me back. My heart stuttered. Another voice in the story. Another thread in the unraveling. I replayed the message twice, trying to place the tone. The nervousness. The urgency. Who was this woman? And what exactly had she found with my name on it? I wiped my face, started the engine, and whispered to myself, whatever this is, I need to know. I called the number from the voicemail 3 times before someone finally answered. A shaky voice whispered, "Is this Lena Whitmore?" "Yes," I replied, gripping my phone tighter. "You said you found something with my name on it?" A long pause. I think your card was used here, at La Lumiere Boutique in Beverly Hills. The manager asked me to confirm because the signature didn't match." My stomach lurched. "Signature?" "Yes. Someone signed your name on a $3,800 purchase, a bracelet. Gold. Custom engraved. Custom engraved. I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't own anything worth that much. I certainly hadn't bought jewelry. I can email you the receipt, she offered softly. If it's really not you, you should see it. Minutes later, the email arrived. There it was. My name, my address, my credit card number, and a shaky, sloppy forged signature pretending to be mine. But what froze my breath wasn't the charge. It was the engraving request. Arielle, forever, C. Colton. A firestorm of betrayal and humiliation curled inside my chest. He hadn't just used my money, he had used my identity. And then something even darker sank in. If he could forge my signature once, what else had he signed in my name? I forwarded the receipt to my work email and tried to breathe. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, a man's voice. Calm, unsteady. Mrs. Whitmore, this is Devin from First National Bank Fraud Department. We need to verify several unusual activities under your account. My pulse spiked. Unusual? How many? Several, he repeated, including a loan application submitted last month, under your signature. My vision blurred. Loan application? I never applied for any loan. Another pause. Ma'am, it's for $150,000. My knees nearly buckled. A forged jewelry purchase was already devastating. But a six-figure loan? My breath came out in sharp, panicked gasps. You have the wrong person. I never... Mrs. Whitmore, Devin said softly. I suggest you come in immediately, before this escalates. Escalates, as if it hadn't already. I ended the call with trembling hands. My reflection in the car window didn't even look like me anymore. Just a frightened woman drowning in someone else's lies. The flowers were nothing. The bracelet was worse. The loan was catastrophic. And all signs pointed to one person. But the question that terrified me most wasn't why Colton did it. It was, how long had he been planning this? I drove straight to the bank, my pulse thundering as if my body already knew the truth my mind refused to accept. The fraud officer scheduled me for an afternoon appointment, leaving 3 long hours for dread to grow claws. When I finally stepped out of the elevator on the 14th floor, a man in a charcoal suit was waiting, tall, composed, unsettlingly observant. Mrs. Whitmore? He asked. Yes. He extended his hand. Grayson Hale, I'll be assisting with your case. His grip was steady, as grounding in a way I wasn't prepared for. But what unsettled me wasn't his calmness. It was the way he studied me, like he already suspected I wasn't here just because of a loan. Let's talk in my office, he said gently. Inside, he motioned for me to sit and opened a folder already filled with documents. Too many documents with my name printed at the top. First, he said, I want to confirm something. Do you recognize this signature? He slid a form across the table. My name, my handwriting, but wrong. So wrong. No, I whispered. That's not mine. He nodded as if he expected that answer. And this one? Another form, another forged signature. My hand shook. Who would do this? Grayson didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned back, fingers steepled. Mrs. Whitmore, are you aware that someone attempted to open 2 additional lines of credit under your name? My breath caught. 2? Yes, both denied due to incomplete documentation. His tone lowered. Whoever did this is persistent and careless. That combination is dangerous. My pulse hammered painfully. Are you saying someone is trying to destroy me financially? Grayson held my gaze. I'm saying someone is using your identity for reasons we haven't uncovered yet. And based on the timing, The spending patterns and the forged signatures? He paused, choosing his words carefully. It is someone who has access to your personal information. The room tilted slightly. Someone close. Someone in my home. Someone who knew my birth date, my social security number, my credit limits. My voice broke. My husband, Colton. Grayson didn't look surprised. In fact, what terrified me most was that he seemed to know that name far too well. Mrs. Whitmore, he said quietly. Before we proceed, there's something I need to tell you. He slid a sealed document across the table, my name written in red ink. I believe this isn't the first time your husband has done something like this. 2 days later, I found myself standing in front of the Fairmont San Francisco, dressed in a navy dress that suddenly felt too thin, too fragile for the night ahead. Colton had insisted I attend the fundraising gala with him, insisted, despite barely speaking to me since the bank meeting. Optics matter, he'd said. We need to look united. United. The word felt like a bruise pressed too hard. Inside, chandeliers glowed like constellations. Gore and the air buzzed with the polished confidence of Silicon Valley executives. Colton walked beside me, hand on my lower back, a gesture that looked tender but felt like a warning. He needed me to play the loyal wife, and I needed to pretend I didn't know what he'd done. Halfway through the cocktail hour, Colton stepped away to greet an investor. I wandered toward the balcony, desperate for air. My nerves were still raw from the meeting with Grayson Hale. His final words echoed in my mind. Your husband has patterns, Mrs. Whitmore, and patterns don't disappear, they escalate. I tried to steady my breathing, but the room spun when I heard her laugh. Light, high, unmistakably familiar. Arielle. She stood near the champagne tower, dressed in a pale gold gown that glittered like she belonged to a world I had never been invited into. And she wasn't alone. Colton was beside her. His posture relaxed, his smile genuine, his hand hovering near her waist, far closer than two colleagues had any right to be. My heart lurched painfully as I froze in place, invisible in a room full of people. A waiter brushed past me and whispered before walking away. She's been here with him before. The words cut sharper than the flowers ever had. As if sensing my presence, Arielle turned. For a moment, surprise flickered across her face, followed by something worse. Satisfaction. She leaned in, whispered something to Colton, and he stiffened when he finally spotted me. His shock turned quickly into irritation, like I had ruined his evening. He walked toward me, jaw tight. Lena, why are you standing here like this? You're making things look weird. I'm making things look weird. And before I could speak, Arielle joined us, her smile sugary sweet. Oh, Lena, right? She chirped. Colton talks about you all the time. The lie stung, but what she said next shattered the ground beneath me. He told me you don't really like social events. That's why he usually comes alone. My breath faltered. Usually. Comes alone. Meaning, this wasn't their first gala together, or the second, or the 10th. Colton's world had two versions of him, and I had only ever known the one meant to keep me quiet. I stood frozen beneath the chandelier, heat flooding my cheeks as Arielle's words echoed through the room. He usually comes alone. It was the kind of humiliation that didn't scream. It whispered, slowly carving itself into bone. Colton shot her a sharp glare, but Arielle only smiled wider, holding her champagne flute like she was toasting my suffering. Before he could drag her away, she placed a manicured hand on his arm and leaned in, not to him, but to me. You really should come out more, Lena, she said sweetly. He gets so lonely at these things. Lonely. A word twisted into a blade. Colton finally snapped. Arielle, enough. She shrugged, unfazed. Just making conversation. But we all knew she wasn't. The humiliation burned so intensely I could barely breathe. I stepped back, bumping into someone behind me. A steady hand caught my elbow before I stumbled. Careful, a low voice murmured. I turned and met the calm, unwavering eyes of Grayson Hale. He looked out of place in the room, not because he didn't belong, but because he carried a presence that demanded attention without even trying. His jaw tightened slightly when he glanced between Colton and Arielle, as if he immediately understood the dynamic. Are you all right? He asked quietly. My voice barely surfaced. Not really. Colton bristled when he saw who I was speaking to. Grayson, what the hell are you doing here? Grayson didn't offer him the courtesy of a smile. I was invited. Their stare-off was thick with history, something bitter, something unfinished. Arielle looked between them, amused. Oh, you two know each other? She purred. Grayson didn't take his eyes off Colton. Unfortunately. Colton stepped closer to me, attempting to reclaim control. Lena doesn't need your help. Grayson's expression didn't move. From where I'm standing, she might. The tension drew the attention of nearby guests. Colton noticed and immediately reined in his temper, though forcing a businessman's smile. Lena, let's go, he ordered. Now! But for the first time in years, his voice didn't anchor me, it repelled me. Grayson's voice dropped low. You don't have to leave with him. A simple sentence, a detonator. Colton's mask cracked. Stay out of this. Grayson finally looked at me, really looked. If you ever need help, you know how to reach me. Arielle smirked behind Colton's shoulder, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. Oh, trust me. You'll need it. Something cold slid through my spine. Because the way she said it wasn't a threat. It was a warning. The morning after the gala felt heavier than any hangover. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Arielle leaning into Colton, whispering in that silky voice, he gets so lonely. And behind her words, Grayson's quiet warning pulsed like a heartbeat. Something was deeply wrong. Not just emotionally, legally, financially, dangerously wrong. I sat at my desk with my laptop open, determination cutting through the fog. If Colton had forged my signature once, he could have done it many times. The only way to know was to dig. I logged into our shared digital storage, something he assumed I never touched. A folder named Taxes 2022 caught my eye. Inside were scans of documents I didn't recognize. Credit applications, authorization forms, statements from banks I'd never heard of. My hands trembled as I opened the first file. There it was. My name printed neatly at the top, and a forged signature at the bottom. Again trying to mimic mine, again failing. A second document, then a third. 5 total. All fraud. I felt sick. On the 6th scan, my breath stopped entirely. It wasn't a loan form. It was a business registration. A shell company in Nevada. The kind used for funneling money? And the listed financial guarantor? Lena Whitmore. My entire body went cold. A creak behind me made me jump. Colton appeared in the doorway, still in his tailored suit, hair perfect, expression unreadable. What are you doing? He asked. I slammed the laptop shut, but it was too late. He had already seen the documents on the screen before it closed. His jaw tightened. You shouldn't be snooping through things you don't understand. My pulse spiked. You forged my name, Colton. On loans, on credit applications, on a company. What is going on? He stepped into the room slowly, like approaching a spooked animal. Lena, listen. His voice dropped to that practiced, patronizing calm. Ah, you're overreacting. I'm handling things. Everything I do is for us. For us? My voice broke. You're destroying my credit, my career, my future. He exhaled sharply, frustration cutting through the mask. I told you, I'll fix it. Fix it, just like he told Arielle. My chest tightened. Do you even hear yourself? This is illegal. His eyes hardened in a way I had never seen before. Then stop digging, he said quietly. For your own good. A chill ran down my spine. That wasn't reassurance. It was a threat. Colton's threat hung in the air long after he left the apartment. Stop digging. For your own good. It replayed in my mind like a warning whispered through a locked door. I didn't know whether he meant legally, financially, or something darker. But I knew one thing. I couldn't stop now. The next morning at work, I tried to focus on spreadsheets, but my hands shook too violently. My inbox kept loading and reloading, layoff announcements rolling in like slow-motion grenades. I felt myself unraveling, piece by piece. At noon, a notification popped up. Package delivered, Whitmore residence. My stomach knotted. Another delivery? Another lie? My shift wasn't over, but panic clawed at my ribs until I couldn't breathe. I rushed out, barely hearing my manager call after me. When I reached our apartment, a small black gift bag sat neatly at the door. Tissue paper folded perfectly. A gold ribbon, too elegant, too familiar. I lifted the tag with trembling fingers. For Lena, from Arielle. The hallway spun. Inside the bag was a velvet box, not jewelry, a USB drive. A note lay beneath it, written in looping feminine handwriting. You're not the first wife he's done this to, and you won't be the last, unless you open your eyes. My heart pounded so violently I could hear it echo. I slammed the door behind me and locked it. My hands trembled as I plugged the USB into my laptop. A folder popped up instantly. Colton Reeves, private. Videos, screenshots, emails, receipts, dozens of them. A chill crept down my spine as I opened the first file, a recorded phone call. Arielle's voice, confident and sharp, cut through the speakers. Colton, I'm not covering for you again. If she finds out you used her social security number, that's on you. My breath hitched. Another recording. Relax, Colton whispered. Lena never checks anything. She trusts me. My throat tightened painfully. The next file was a screenshot of bank transfers. Large sums of money funneled into the Nevada shell company using my identity. My future, my credit, my life. Arielle had known everything. She had watched. She had participated. And now, she was turning on him. But why? Before I could reach the next file, a new message appeared on my phone. Unknown number. Did you get my gift? We should talk, before he finds out. My lungs seized. Arielle wasn't done. Not even close. That night, the apartment felt colder than it had in years. Not because the temperature had dropped, but because everything warm inside me had drained away. The USB, Arielle's smug handwriting, the forged documents. Each one carved another line into the truth I had tried so hard not to see. Colton was not just unfaithful. He was dangerous. To my finances, to my safety, to my future. As the realization settled, something inside me cracked. Not suddenly, but quietly, like a thin layer of ice giving way beneath slow pressure. I sank onto the couch, wrapping my arms around myself. The city lights outside flickered against the glass, reflections of a life that kept moving while mine was coming undone. I felt so small, so foolish, so unbearably alone. In a desperate attempt to steady my breathing, I reached for the one thing that had ever helped calm my anxiety, a worn copy of Women Who Run with the Wolves. I opened to a dog-eared page and read words I didn't know I needed. A woman must claim her wounds, then she can claim her power. The sentence hit me like a truth I had been avoiding my whole life. My wounds weren't weaknesses, they were warnings. Warnings I had ignored for 10 years. Walt Colton's dismissiveness, his secrecy, his coldness, the way he rewrote reality until I doubted my own eyes. I pressed the book against my chest and let myself cry. Quiet, exhausted tears that felt like they were coming from the younger version of me who still believed love meant enduring everything. But somewhere in the middle of those tears, something shifted. My breaths deepened, my spine straightened, my thoughts sharpened. A voice inside, one I hadn't heard in years, whispered, "You deserve better than survival." My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number, Arielle again. "Meet me tomorrow, noon, Pier 27. Don't tell him." I stared at it, torn between fear and curiosity. Why help me now? What did she gain? But then another message appeared, this one from Grayson. "If anything changes with your situation, call me. Don't hesitate." 2 messages, 2 paths, 2 people who knew more about my husband than I ever had. I closed the book gently. Tonight, I had broken. Tomorrow, I would begin to rise. By the time noon approached the next day, the air at Pier 27 felt thick with fog and tension. I stood near the railing, clutching my coat tighter against the cold wind drifting off the bay. Seagulls circled overhead, indifferent to the storm building inside me. Arielle arrived exactly on time, heels clicking against the pavement, sunglasses masking whatever expression she wore. She looked nothing like the woman who had humiliated me at the gala. Today, there was no glitter, no practiced smile, only a sharp, calculating seriousness. "You came?" she said. "I shouldn't have," I replied. "True." She shrugged. "But you need help." I stiffened. "Why would you help me?" Her lips curled into something between amusement and regret. "Because Colton used me too. He promised things he could never deliver and dragged me into some of his financial games. But you—" She paused, her gaze steady. "He built everything he does on your name." A chill tore through me. "Why tell me all this now?" "Because he's losing control," she said simply. "And when powerful men lose control, they get reckless. You have one advantage. Your name is still clean. Use that before he destroys it." Before I could respond, she handed me a folder. "Bank transfers, messages, proof he forged your identity. You'll need a lawyer who isn't afraid of him." I hesitated only a second before taking it. "Why not go to the police yourself?" Arielle let out a humorless laugh. "I'm not stupid. If I go down, he'll drag me with him. But if you go after him, now that's a narrative no one can spin." She began to walk away, then paused. "One more thing. He's planning something bigger, something he hasn't told me. Whatever you do, move fast." My pulse raced. "What is he planning?" She shook her head. "I only know one phrase he said. When it hits, she won't know what happened." The words hit like a blow. After Arielle left, I stood alone with the folder heavy in my hands, my decision forming like steel in my chest. I didn't drive home. I didn't go to work. I went straight to the one person who had warned me, Grayson Hale. When he opened the door to his office, I lifted the folder and said, "I want to fight back." He didn't look surprised. "Good," he said. Because we're out of time. Grayson's office sat on the 32nd floor overlooking the San Francisco skyline, sleek glass walls, polished wood, and a quiet authority that settled into the room like a second presence. As I stepped inside, clutching Arielle's folder, I felt small for a moment. Then something steadier rose inside me. Grayson motioned to the chair across from his desk. Sit. Tell me everything. For the next hour, I did. The forged signatures, the fraudulent accounts, the Nevada Shell Company, the bracelet, the flowers, Arielle's warning, Colton's threat. Grayson listened without interrupting, his expression sharpening with every detail. When I finished, he leaned back, fingers pressed thoughtfully against his lips. Lena, he said finally, your husband isn't just cheating. He's financially weaponizing you. The words stung because they felt true. How do I stop him? You don't stop him, Grayson replied. You outmaneuver him. He opened the folder Arielle had given me, scanning the documents with surgical precision. This is enough to start a case: identity theft, fraud, financial abuse, but we need to move quietly. If he senses you're pulling away control, he'll accelerate whatever he's planning. A shiver ran down my spine. Arielle said something big was coming? Grayson nodded grimly. My guess? He's preparing a large withdrawal or another loan, something that will bury you legally. If he tanks your credit, he can claim you're unstable, irresponsible, making it harder for you to leave or fight back. My throat tightened. So what do I do? His voice softened. First, you separate your finances. Freeze all accounts tied to your name. I'll help file fraud alerts. Second, he held my gaze. You need proof he's dangerous before he destroys yours. I exhaled shakily. Proof like what? A paper trail, conversations, patterns, every threat, every forged form, every unexplained transaction. He paused. And Lena, it might mean playing along for a little while, letting him believe he still has control. The idea made my stomach churn, but I understood. To beat someone like Colton, I had to stop reacting and start calculating. Grayson slid a new folder toward me, my name printed cleanly across the top. This, he said, is your escape plan. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered. Not bright, not safe, but real. I closed the folder gently. I'm ready. Grayson nodded once. Good. Because he's already making his next move. I wasn't ready to face Colton that evening, but fate didn't care. He came home earlier than usual, the door slamming hard enough to shake the picture frames. I froze in the hallway, folder tucked beneath my arm, pulse thundering. He looked furious, but not at me, at something else. Something he couldn't control. Why are you home? He demanded, loosening his tie with jerky movements. I swallowed. I finished work early. His eyes narrowed. Did you go anywhere? Talk to anyone? The question wasn't casual. It was an interrogation. My heartbeat stuttered. No, why? Colton scoffed, pacing like a man unraveling. Because an investor backed out today. Someone's been asking questions. Someone who shouldn't. I felt the air thicken. Had Grayson already made moves? Or was Arielle stirring trouble on the other side? Colton turned sharply. You didn't speak to anyone about our finances, did you? The word "our" stung like acid. I steadied my voice. Colton, why would I? I don't even know what you've been doing with them. He stopped pacing. His head snapped toward me slowly. Too slowly. That's exactly how it should be. For a moment, neither of us moved. The silence stretched, a taut wire ready to snap. Then he stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're acting different, suspicious. You going through my things? I clutched the folder tighter. Are you forging documents under my name? His jaw tightened. Lena, don't start. Did you take out a loan? I pressed. A $150,000 loan? Did you open a shell company with me listed as the guarantor? The mask slipped. Right there. Cracked clean down the center. Colton's eyes hardened into something sharp and unfamiliar. You need to forget what you think you know. I stepped back. I won't. His voice dropped into a cold, controlled whisper. Then you're going to make this much worse for yourself. A shiver crawled up my spine. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you reality, he bit out. If you keep poking around, the IRS will come after you. The banks will come after you. You think anyone will believe the innocent wife act? I felt my breath hitch. He thought he had already won. He thought I was alone, uninformed, powerless. But then, my phone vibrated. A message from Grayson lit up the screen. He made the withdrawal. We need to move. Now. Colton saw the name. His entire body went rigid, and in that split second, he realized I wasn't alone anymore. Colton lunged toward me the second he saw Grayson's name flash across my phone. Why is he contacting you? He demanded, voice sharp enough to slice through the air. What did you tell him? I stepped back, clutching my phone tightly. Enough. His eyes darkened. Lena, you don't understand what you're doing. But I did. For the first time in 10 years, I finally did. I grabbed my coat and walked toward the door. Colton moved to block me, but something in my expression made him hesitate. Fear, maybe. Or the realization that whatever control he once held was slipping fast. I'm leaving, I said quietly. He scoffed. You're not walking out in the middle of this conversation. I met his gaze. This isn't a conversation. For a heartbeat, he was speechless. Then, rage. You think that lawyer can save you? He spat. He doesn't know what's going on. I held his stare. Actually, he knows exactly what's going on. Colton's jaw clenched. A pulse beat sharply in his temple. He told you lies, he growled. He showed me evidence, I corrected. That froze him. Real fear flickered behind his arrogance, brief but unmistakable. He has no right. He has every right, I cut in, because you dragged my name into crimes I never agreed to. My voice shook, but not from fear this time, from fury, from clarity. You used me. You gambled with my future. You forged my identity. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. If you turn on me, Lena, you'll regret it. There it was again, his favorite weapon. Threats wrapped in calmness. But this time, it didn't land. I walked past him. He grabbed my wrist. For the first time ever, I pulled away, hard enough that he stumbled back a step. His shock was almost satisfying. You're making a mistake, he said, breath uneven. No, I replied, hand on the doorknob. I made the mistake of trusting you. When I stepped into the hallway, the air felt colder, but in a way that cleared my mind instead of clouding it. Grayson was waiting outside the building in his car, his expression tight with urgency. He moved the money, he said, holding out a folder. All of it, but he slipped up. He transferred part of it to an account tied to federal jurisdiction. What does that mean? I whispered. Grayson's eyes met mine. It means we're not just dealing with fraud anymore, he said. We're dealing with a federal offense. My breath caught. And Lena, they're already watching him. The drive to Grayson's firm felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life spiral into a legal storm. My hands shook in my lap as he briefed me on what the investigators had discovered. Federal jurisdiction, suspicious transfers, fraud flags lit up like fireworks. Colton had pushed too far, and now the world was pushing back. Inside the conference room, Grayson laid out documents and timelines with surgical precision. "We're filing for emergency financial protection," he said. "We need to freeze all accounts tied to your name. Every forged signature becomes evidence." I nodded, numb. "What happens to him?" Grayson exhaled. "That depends on how much he's done. But Lena, people don't just accidentally wander into federal-level crimes. This took planning." Planning. The word made my skin crawl. "So he was building this for months?" I whispered. "Shh, years," Grayson corrected gently. "He just got sloppy now because he's desperate." I pressed a hand to my mouth, trying to steady myself. Then he slid another folder toward me. "There's more. We obtained a partial report from a private investigator the bank used years ago, for another case." "Another case?" My pulse stuttered. Grayson continued carefully. "Your husband had a fiancée before you. She filed financial misconduct claims. The case was dismissed, but the patterns match." A cold shiver ran through me. "So he's done this before," I said weakly. "He starts by isolating, then controlling money, then hiding debts under someone else's identity. When the system catches on, he moves to a new partner." My stomach twisted. "And now it's me." Grayson didn't answer. He didn't have to. Before I could process more, his assistant hurried into the room. "Mr. Hale, there's something you need to see." She handed him a tablet. His jaw tightened as he scanned the screen. "What is it?" I asked. He turned the screen toward me. A news headline glared back. "Federal investigation targets local investment executive. Alleged fraud under spouse's identity." And beneath it, a photo of Colton. My heart plummeted. Grayson spoke quietly. "It's public now. He'll know he's cornered." As if on cue, my phone vibrated violently. Colton. His name flashed again and again. 6 calls in under a minute. Grayson met my eyes. "Don't answer." The phone continued buzzing, relentless and panicked. Then, a text popped up. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you just unleashed." My blood ran cold, because Colton wasn't just desperate now. He was dangerous. By the time the sun began to set, casting streaks of orange across the skyline, the situation had already spiraled beyond anything Colton could control. The news headline kept spreading. Financial forums, LinkedIn chatter, even local TV stations. His pristine reputation was cracking in real time, and he knew it. The calls didn't stop. Neither did the messages. "Pick up, Lena. We need to talk. This is your fault. Answer me." Each one more frantic than the last. Grayson placed my phone face down on the table. This is exactly what happens when men like him realize the narrative isn't theirs anymore. I swallowed hard. What happens next? "He'll try to twist the story," Grayson said. "Blame you, threaten you, or pretend to be the victim. That's his pattern." I closed my eyes, remembering the patterns I had ignored for years. His charm, his temper, his shifting truths. Then the building security called Grayson's office. "Mr. Hale, there's a man in the lobby demanding to see Mrs. Whitmore." My blood turned to ice. "Colton." The guard continued. "He's agitated. Should we remove him?" Grayson didn't hesitate. "Yes. Do not let him upstairs." He hung up and turned to me. "We're leaving, through the garage." My breath trembled as we hurried into the private elevator. My legs felt weak, but Grayson stayed close, his presence steady and protective. In the garage, the air smelled of concrete and cold metal. Grayson unlocked his car, but before we could get in, a voice echoed from behind a row of parked SUVs. "Lena!" Colton stepped out from the shadows. His tie was loose, his hair disheveled, his expression a frightening mix of fury and desperation. "How did you get down here?" Grayson demanded. Colton ignored him, eyes locked on me, eyes I no longer recognized. "You need to fix this," he barked. "Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them I didn't know." "I'm not lying for you," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. His face contorted. "You owe me that much." "I owe you nothing." He took a step toward me, but Grayson moved between us instantly. "Back away, Colton." Colton's gaze snapped to him, venomous. "You think you've won? You think you can turn her against me?" Grayson didn't blink. "She saw who you are. All I did was turn on the light." Colton's breathing grew ragged, his composure unraveling completely. Then he pointed at me, eyes wild. "If I go down, she's going down with me." The threat echoed through the garage, and for the first time, I realized he wasn't afraid of losing everything. He was afraid of losing control of me. The next 48 hours moved like a blur. Court filings, fraud reports, emergency protective orders. Grayson guided every step with a steadiness that kept me from collapsing. Even so, I felt the weight of 10 years pressing against my ribs, reminding me of every moment I had stayed quiet, every moment I had believed Colton's version of reality instead of my own. But something changed the moment the judge signed the order, freezing all accounts tied to my name. I felt my lungs expand again, like breathing for the first time. By Monday morning, news outlets were swarming Colton's company. Investors fled. Employees leaked stories. His carefully crafted empire, built on charm, deception, and my identity, was collapsing in real time. Watching it from my new temporary apartment in the Marina District felt surreal. I didn't feel triumphant yet. I felt free. For the first time in years, I brewed coffee in a quiet kitchen without waiting for footsteps, criticism, or tension to fill the room. I opened my laptop and saw a message from HR. Not the cold, automated layoff notice I expected, but an offer for a remote advisory position. A position created for me. Progress. Proof that I still had worth outside his shadow. Around noon, Grayson arrived to review the next steps. He carried the crisp smell of rain on his coat, the kind of grounded presence that made the room feel less dangerous. "You're doing better than you think," he said, taking a seat across from me. I let out a tired laugh. "I don't feel like I am." "That's because you're still in the middle of the fire," he replied gently. "But you're walking out of it." He slid a new document toward me. "The federal investigators contacted me this morning. They want a formal statement from you, and they believe Colton acted alone." Alone, meaning they no longer saw me as collateral damage. They saw me as a victim and a witness. My hands trembled, not with fear this time, but with something startlingly close to relief. "Lena," Grayson said quietly, "this is where your life starts to rebuild." Our eyes met, and for a moment the world felt still. Not chaotic, not broken, just still. And then my phone buzzed. A new message. Not from Colton, from Arielle. "He's about to do something desperate. Check the news." "Now!" My breath caught as I opened the browser and saw the headline that would change everything. The headline on my phone stopped my breath cold. Investment executive Colton Reeves attempted to flee, detained at SFO for federal inquiry. For a moment, I simply stared, the world narrowing into a single point of clarity. Desperation. Flight risk. Caught. It was over. Not just emotionally, but legally, publicly, irrevocably. I showed Grayson the screen. He exhaled slowly. This is the break we needed. Federal custody means he can't touch you anymore. A weight I'd carried for years slipped off my shoulders in one long, trembling breath. Later that afternoon, the federal agents requested my final statement. I walked into the courthouse alone, but stood tall, no longer shrinking beneath anyone's shadow. Soon the room smelled faintly of old paper and colder truths. I spoke clearly, confidently, about the forged documents, the loans, the shell company, the threats, the years of control. When I finished, the agent closed his folder and said, "Mrs. Whitmore, you've done the right thing. Your cooperation is invaluable." For once, I believed it. Colton's downfall echoed across financial news circuits. His company severed ties. His assets were frozen. Former colleagues denounced him. Investors filed lawsuits. Arielle released the final set of evidence, ensuring every angle of his deception was exposed. There was no coming back for him. Not this time. Not ever. A week later, I stood on the rooftop deck of my new Marina District apartment, the cool breeze brushing past me as the sun dipped behind the Golden Gate Bridge. The world felt bigger now, safer. Mine. Grayson stepped beside me, holding 2 cups of coffee. "For the new chapter," he said, offering one. I smiled softly. "A chapter I didn't think I'd survive." "But you did," he replied. "You didn't just survive. You reclaimed your life." We watched the city lights flicker awake. For once, the quiet wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. "Lena," he said gently, "when you're ready, I'd like to take you to dinner. A real one. No chaos, no shadows, just 2 people starting fresh." Warmth bloomed in my chest. Not overwhelming, not rushed, just real. "I think," I said, meeting his eyes, "I'm finally ready for something good." And as the last bit of sunlight faded, I realized Colton didn't break me. He freed me. Not from love, but from a cage I never should have been in. And for the first time in a decade, I stepped forward without fear. So that's how the story comes to a close. And you're still here with me, aren't you? If you're hearing these words right now, then something in Lena's journey touched your heart in a way you maybe didn't expect. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Or a moment life asked you to rise when you didn't feel ready. You know, the Stoics often said, "The obstacle is the way." And watching Lena walk through betrayal, fear, and loss only to find clarity and peace on the other side, that reminds us that sometimes life isn't punishing us, it's redirecting us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Lena didn't win because the world helped her. She won because she chose herself, finally and fully. And maybe that's the real message here. You are allowed to leave what breaks you. You are allowed to rebuild. And you are allowed to choose a life where you feel safe, valued, and loved. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think, breathe deeper, or see yourself differently, please like, share, and subscribe. Not for the numbers, but so stories like this can keep finding the people who secretly need them the most. We're here, together, and your journey matters too. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment, reflection, and emotional storytelling. While the characters and events may feel real, they are not based on any specific individuals, relationships, or legal situations. The intention is to explore universal themes, resilience, healing, and personal growth through a dramatic narrative. Any resemblance to real people or real events is purely coincidental. Viewers should understand that the financial, legal, and emotional elements depicted are artistic interpretations, not professional advice. Always seek qualified guidance when dealing with real-life legal or financial matters. Thank you for watching, for feeling with the story, and for supporting this creative space where we can learn and reflect together.